Please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Department of State's George Marshall Conference Center for the swearing-in of Todd Robinson as the next U.S. Ambassador to Guatemala. We are privileged to have the Honorable Patrick Kennedy officiating our ceremony today. And we're also so pleased to have the Robinson family here. They include his mother, Willetta, his brothers Jeffrey and Mark, his sister-in-law Maribel, and his nieces Hastings and Javen. Welcome all. I would also like to recognize His Excellency Julio Ligoria, Ambassador of Guatemala to the United States. Welcome. The Honorable Stephen McFarland, former U.S. Ambassador to Guatemala. The Honorable Arnold Chacon, former Ambassador to Guatemala. Major General Joseph DeSalvo, Commanding General U.S. Army South. Welcome. And the Honorable Roberta Jacobson, Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemispheres. Please welcome all with a nice round of applause. We will begin our ceremony this morning with remarks by the Undersecretary. This will be followed by the administration of the oath of office, the signing of the appointment papers, and to conclude with remarks by Ambassador Robinson. It is now my great honor to present the Undersecretary for Management, Patrick Kennedy.
Welcome. Today it is my very distinct and very real personal pleasure to swear in Todd Robinson as the United States Ambassador. I want to extend a special welcome to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Guatemala to the United States. Welcome, sir. To the many distinguished guests from other agencies and from within the State Department. And a particular welcome to the Ambassador's extended family. Thank you all very much for joining us today, especially his mother and his brothers who have traveled so far to be here on this important day. Welcome everyone to the George Marshall Conference Center, named for one of our greatest Secretaries of State, and thus a fitting location to swear in Todd as the United States Ambassador, as he brings to his latest endeavor a distinguished and diverse background. Todd's assignments on 2 continents, as well as in Washington, have deepened his understanding of diverse peoples and cultures. Todd has had a long and distinguished career with the State Department, particularly in the Western Hemisphere and in Europe. And it is no coincidence that these are both regions of the world that take soccer very seriously. As many as you know, Todd is an avid soccer player and fan, and the department felt very confident proposing him as ambassador to Guatemala, given, and we checked, that there is no World Cup scheduled during his planned tenure. And that way we know we would get at least some attention to his work. Todd is no stranger, seriously, to Guatemala and the challenges that country faces, having served as Deputy Chief of Mission there from 2009 to 2011. However, when he returns to the land of eternal spring, this time as ambassador, he will confront more challenging and diverse issues. Guatemala, along with El Salvador and Honduras, is coping with a significant increase of the migration of children and families to the United States. Guatemala in particular continues to suffer from high levels of malnutrition, food insecurity, and social inequalities. The migration of children and families has captured the attention of the American public on an area of the world that Todd has focused a significant portion of his distinguished career. The challenges that drive these vulnerable populations to migrate to the United States are vast, spanning issues relating to the economy, security, and governance, the situation at the border, and the conditions that have driven these individuals to migrate, underscores the importance of building a strong, trusting, and lasting partnership with our neighbor Guatemala. Despite these difficult conditions, we are all confident that there is no one more dedicated to building an inclusive partnership with Guatemalan society and advancing our mutual interests. As a former colleague said about Todd, you won't find anyone who cares more about his work, who is prouder to represent the United States of America, and who will work tirelessly on the issues that matter most. We're all well aware of the challenges and opportunities that await Todd when he arrives in Guatemala City. Everyone in this room has confidence that you will successfully lead this mission and advance U.S.-Guatemalan friendship. As we know, you will continue to make the job fun and fashionable for In naming Todd Robinson as our ambassador, President Obama has reconfirmed our commitment to a strong bilateral relationship. We are fortunate that as Chief of Mission, Todd will be able to draw on his wealth of hemispheric experience, including 5 previous postings on the continent. The excellence and dedication that he exhibited in these positions mark him as an officer of distinction who has continually displayed presence, tenacity, and true competence. I have no doubt that under his leadership, Embassy Guatemala City will attract and cultivate the new generation of our best and brightest young professionals. Todd knows very well the challenges and opportunities that await him. He knows the issues, he knows the key players, and most importantly, he knows how to get things done. Mr. Ambassador, we're sending you one of our best. And when you have the relationship we have with the government and people of Guatemala, it is critical that the United States of America be represented in that capital by an ambassador of substance and accomplishments. And the American Embassy in Guatemala City will shortly have such a distinguished American in residence. It is now my pleasure to administer the oath of office to Todd D. Robinson to be the next United States Ambassador, extraordinary and plenipotentiary, as the President's Commission says. Todd, if this oath is taken, and as this assembly bears witness to it, I ask that you all remember the very, very special nature of this oath. When the United States Congress prescribed an oath of office, one of its very first legislative acts over 2 centuries ago, oaths to a king or a queen were quite commonplace. But an oath to a constitution and the people who one serves was unique. And still today, it establishes a very, very special bond between the American people and those who have sworn to serve them. So Todd, if you're ready, please, sir. Put your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand and say, repeat after me. I, Todd D. Robinson,
I, Todd D. Robinson,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. Ambassador. This is the government. Everything in at least triplicate.
Well, as the Vice President would say, this is a big deal. I didn't quote him exactly. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. I want to express appreciation to the President and to the Secretary for putting forth my names and nominating me. Assistant Secretary Jacobs for her trust and confidence. Undersecretary Kennedy for officiating and the kind words. I also want to thank Chairman Robert Menendez from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and also a fellow New Jerseyan, and Senator Thomas Carper from Delaware for their generosity in moving my confirmation forward. I will say it was a strange thing to be standing in my pajamas at 9 o'clock in the evening as my name was being debated on the floor of the Senate and I was watching on C-SPAN. Ambassador Lloria, Ambassador Chacon, Ambassador McFarland, Major General of the U.S. Army South, Joseph DeSalvo, thank you for coming. Friends and colleagues, before I start this, I should mention my great family, my mother, Willetta, Mark, my middle brother, and Jeff, my younger brother, and Hastings and Javen as well, for coming to travel and share this time with me. There's no way I could have done this without you all, and I really appreciate your support. Mark still keeps me honest, and Jeff has always been supportive, and he's actually visited in a number of the places that I served, and that's been really great. You all know that you can't do this alone, and I want to thank the many friends who traveled a long distance to come here as well. But they traveled near and far, and I want to thank you for coming to share this with me. You will notice that there were 2 books that I used for the swearing in. One was the Constitution, of course. The other was the Bible. And it was a Bible loaned to me by my old boss, Ambassador Brownfield. He was, I think, a little sad that he couldn't make it here today. He's in New York, but although he couldn't be here physically, he's here in spirit. And I really appreciate the fact that he lent me his Bible. And I will mention my INL colleagues a little later on. There are 3 people who are not here with me today, that I want to particularly mention because they were so special in my life. The first was my grandmother, Christine Smith. We called her Mama Teen, who left us in 2000. And every time I used to pass through New York and New Jersey on my way home, she would pick me up at the airport. I could call her anytime, day or night. She'd always pick me up at the airport. I'd sleep on her couch or on her floor, whichever, and then take the train the next day to our house in Fanwood. She would have loved this. She would have loved meeting you all. The second person is my stepfather, who I call Dad, Neil Bacote. He died a year later in 2001, and he really had a hard time raising me. I did not make it easy for him. All right. At the end of the day, he made it possible for me to go to Georgetown. I'm pretty sure I surprised him by actually graduating. And he put me on the right path to public service. And the last person I want to mention is former Congressman Donald Payne, another New Jersey boy, who died in 2012. Like our president, he was a community leader who took a special interest in youth in America and abroad. I took part in his Model UN and Youth in Government programs way back when. I used to travel on my own by train from the town we lived in to Newark, New Jersey, where he did his programs at the YMCA. And I was a preteen at the time. Later, he would always be amazed after he was elected to Congress to find me greeting him in places around the world, like El Salvador or the Dominican Republic. It always surprised him. I told him at the very beginning, when I was in the Foreign Service, he would see me around, and he never